What's going on, everybody? I am Winston A. Marshall, aka the Swaggy Blerd, and this is the Blerd Breakdown, the pop culture show for when you need to know, see what happened was. Now, if this is your first time here, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, throw a thumbs up on this video, all that good stuff, man. I would greatly appreciate it. It helps out the channel. To all those that have already done that, I have a huge thank you. We have hit 5,000 subscribers. Means the world to me that we've come here, man. You know, it's been a grind. I know it's been inconsistent in this mug from time to time, but it really means a lot that you guys are doing that, and that only helps me further along and bring you more content and do more good stuff on here. So we're going to continue to do that, and again, I thank you. Like I said, subscribe everywhere, but check out, obviously, me on social media and other places. I'm doing all the kind of stuff, man. You know, throwing my out of the theater reactions and stuff and comedy stuff on those places as well, but super happy to be here. We got a lot to talk about, man. This episode really is kind of more or less about the state of Hollywood, just because it is a little all over the place, if we're being honest. But it's going to be interesting one way or the other. Obviously, my top story here, as you can see from the thing, is, you know, Trump's tariffs on Hollywood. So let's just jump right into it. And you're going to have to, and this is live. I know some people are a little bit concerned after Blerds in the Hood had to be pre-taped last week, but this is live. I see y'all in the chat. Thank you for joining me. Abernathy Ra, Seattle KO, Joseph Ashley, MK Songbird. As people come in, obviously, we'll do all that. And if you want to support the show, the super chats are open, or you can go to streamlabs.com/theswaggyblerd/tip. Streamlab is preferred just because they take less of a cut, but any support I greatly appreciate, man. But let's jump into it. Let's just get right into it. You're going to have to bear with me. The stream deck is fully gone out right now. So I am going to have to make transitions by hand, but we will still make it happen, yo. So let's get right into it. All right. So our first story, as I mentioned, Donald Trump has issued 100% tariffs on films that are being produced outside of the U.S. So let me go ahead and pull up a publication reporting on it real quick. Again, normally this is where my lovely little stream deck would just kind of transition me all over, but we're going to have to do it by hand. So, alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and read Comic Book Movies version of this story. This is Josh Wilding reporting on it, and then I'll give my 2 cents on what's going on here. So earlier this year, United States President Donald Trump threatened to hit films produced outside the United States with 100% tariffs. He's yet to explain how these would work, especially as, depending on where they're set, some movies need to shoot overseas. But if it does go ahead, it will be a crushing blow to Hollywood studios. Marvel Studios, for example, shot the Fantastic Four First Steps in the UK, with Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Doomsday, and Avengers Secret Wars based in the country too. On the DC side, Supergirl and Clayface have been filmed across the pond, and Lucasfilms currently has cameras rolling on Star Wars Starfighter in the UK. For the Commander-in-Chief, that's a lot of jobs that could and should go to American workers. Taking to his social media platform True Social Day, Trump wrote, "Our movie-making business has been stolen from the United States of America by other countries, just like stealing candy from a baby. California, with its weak and incompetent governor, has been hit particularly hard. This grammar is always crazy." He added, "Therefore, in order to solve this long-term, never-ending problem, I'll be imposing a 100% tariff on any and all movies that are made outside of the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Trump previously said that foreign productions are a national security threat to the American movie industry, adding that they not only draw filmmakers to other markets, but also bring messaging and propaganda into the United States. Shortly after Trump was elected, Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and Jon Voight were named as special ambassadors to Hollywood. We've seen very little from them since, and it's not clear what advice, if any, they provided the president with. It's also unclear how such tariffs would be enforced or who would fit the bill. The consensus among Hollywood insiders in May was that this would devastate the film industry, drastically reducing the numbers of films and TV shows produced worldwide. While many studios take advantage of foreign tax breaks to shoot Hollywood productions, they typically take American workers with them. So whether this will increase jobs is debatable. As with most tariffs, the American people will potentially suffer most, and it's been said that the cost of theater tickets could potentially double, with streaming service subscription prices also rising. As one producer previously said, it's insane. So U.S. companies can only make U.S. films. James Cameron can't make Avatar overseas. Who pays the tariffs? Leading independent distributors would all be out of business if it's them. Okay. So here we go. Let's talk about this because there's a lot going on. Sorry about that. I do apologize. So here's why this is not this, like, if an actual plan had been put out, I would feel maybe, like I said, I'm going to keep the same energy. A good idea is a good idea, but Trump always shoots from the hip like a fucking child. And so you end up in a situation where this is a bad idea for a couple of reasons. To just say sweepingly, all movies produced outside of the U.S. have 100% tariffs is, first of all, insane. Some of the best movies that you've ever seen, you don't want to, like, how many times have you seen current Marvel movies and you've complained because, man, there's too much green screen or blue screen, there's too much whatever. In certain cases, you need that for certain things, but people love seeing films that feel more realistic, that are shot on location. Guess what? As big as America is, and as beautiful as America is, like, geographically, there are some things you simply cannot shoot here for that reason. That's the first issue with this. So, The Lord of the Rings, for example, you're not finding that kind of like natural beauty and things like that. You'll find similar stuff, but the look that you're used to out of Lord of the Rings, that ain't happening here. Okay? So considering that was, like, it was a combo of things, but considering that was specifically set to have that look and a lot of that was produced here in America, you're talking about that movie costing infinitely more money as far as all that stuff goes. So that's the first thing. The second thing is exactly that. Yes, are there some jobs because of that are then defaulting to these other companies that you're shooting in? Sure, that's the nature of, if you go and shoot in a particular town, you're going to get that. That's why Ryan Coogler was very specific, and, you had people that were like, well, why didn't you shoot it? I can't, like, the town specifically you were trying to model it after, but I think he went to Louisiana instead of Mississippi. Part of that has to do with what the state is willing to offer in order to help with some of those tax breaks. But when you do that, you do bring business to those towns. Now, part of the reason why a lot of stuff has left California, and this is something to then look at, at Newsom and his administration, honestly, about not coming up with a game plan for this sooner. And you've seen the bleeding of a decent amount of Silicon Valley companies to also leave for Texas and things like that. That is held on this administration for not coming up with similar or as comparable tax breaks as you will see in a Georgia, in a Louisiana, where you've seen Georgia becoming a new mecca for Hollywood, essentially, because of the breaks you can get for filming down there. The reason why a lot of the shows you've seen with the CW and everything else like that, why they end up over in Vancouver. Again, you are being offered better tax rates in order to do this. What people have to remember is that making TV shows, making films costs an absurd amount of money. It's not just to the actors and whatever it is that they cost to do stuff. The equipment, like the various, like, film equipment, the cameras, the sound, the lighting, all of that, the trucks, paying for food, paying for all the shit that comes along with making a movie, and it costs a lot. That type of shit, if you can help mitigate some of that with what is being caused in the taxes, you can then on the back end go, we can justify spending X amount of dollars because then we're not having to pay X amount of taxes on the back end of shit. That's part of where all of that is. So honestly, this is a scenario where hitting it with tariffs doesn't make sense because then they'll just cut back on projects. What would have been a better game plan is a game plan of finding better tax incentives to get productions to stay here. You know what I'm saying? That's what that is, because ultimately, as we've seen with tariffs as they are already in every other industry, the blowback is going to the consumer. This is one of those things where Hollywood obviously is like, well, we're not going to shut down as a whole. We're going to have to figure out how to make our shit. And if the only thing that we can do is if we need Lord of the Rings, the next movie to happen, and we need New Zealand, then fuck it, fine. We'll pay your little tariffs, but then the cost of this is going to hit at the theater. We're going to cut out AMC. AMC's going to be like, well, I guess we got to raise ticket prices. And now AMC A-List, which costs 25, 27, somewhere in that range a month, is going to jump up to 40 something to try and make up for that. Netflix having shot whatever in order to offset that, instead of already being at 25 and it continues to go up, that shit's going to jump up to $40 a month. And then you're only going to see, like, this genuinely is a short-sighted way to do this. Now, again, if there was a game plan rolled out to show specifically how these tariffs are going to work, fine. And if it made sense, fine. But that's not what he does, and that's not what's happening. He gave out just a general blanket statement, 100%. Because again, what does that mean? Is that on equipment? Because let's say, for example, you could get whatever cameras and cranes and all that stuff that are maybe manufactured in Vancouver specifically, or maybe the mecca of all renting out places like that or whatever. They have all of that in Vancouver, right? So does that mean that even if we shot all of it in New York, if we rented all of our gear from Vancouver, are we getting a 100% tariff on the rental, on the whole movie because we did that? Like, again, it is a short-sighted, broad stroke bullshit to say this shit. So again, when we actually see what the full-on game plan is, that will be very interesting to see what happens. But for the time being, this just sounds absolutely ridiculous. When you throw in the fact that, again, the way that we're going to solve this is we're going to need companies to be looking out for the people that are actually turning around and trying to make a living doing this shit. And I find it very laughable that to come out of his mouth that it's a national security threat and that, there's propaganda that's going to be pushed by this stuff being produced outside of the country, when you literally tried to use the FCC a week or two ago to silence a critic of yours that for free speech. Again, I've talked about the Kimmel situation in other places and things like that. And regardless of what at the base where things were, if we're talking about specifically freedom of speech in this country, a government agency under his administration put pressure on other media companies to take Jimmy Kimmel off of the air. You literally have gone out of your way to push that type of propaganda of silencing people. So this idea of like that is a national security threat. To literally attack the First Amendment is a national security threat. So miss me with that shit as well. So again, if a plan comes out, if a bill comes out, or whatever this executive or whatever bullshit he's putting out that says specific ways in which these tariffs work and how that stuff works, fine. And if it makes sense, fine. But he's not known for putting that kind of stuff out. He's known for, again, broad stroke shit. And it always fucking backfires. So I will wait and see. We will re-report on this, obviously talk about this more once we know more about what the actual game plan is. But for the time being, this sounds like some stupid shit about somebody that knows nothing about Hollywood whatsoever and is actually running the risk of putting more jobs at danger, because what studios will ultimately do is they will just cut productions. If things are going to get that much more expensive, not only will they pass the buck off to the consumers as every other company has done, they will just cut productions. So instead of 3 to 4 Marvel movies, and I'm just using them as an example, in a year, you could probably get 1. Instead of, a Sinners and one battle after another and whatever the fuck else, you're getting a handful of them. That will be it. And the smaller budget shit will really probably be done, because studios aren't going to they're already not taking a lot of chances on a lot of that independent stuff. They'll buy them maybe afterwards at film festivals, but they're not going to do all that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And again, I am leaving space to see what the plan is, but on its face, dumb as shit. But I want to know what you think in the comments, man. Let me know how you're feeling about it. And with that, let's go on to the next story. And again, bear with me. We're doing all this manually right now. All right, so we don't need story 1 anymore. Let's get to story 2. All right, this one was maybe as upsetting today. Like, I had a rough way to wake up this morning that I was having to look at all of this biggity bullshit. But it has been reported that AI actress Tilly Norwood draws backlash from Melissa Barria, Lucas Gage, and more Hollywood names as a creator defends her as a new tool and not a replacement for human beings. And on top of that, that this particular actress is this AI actress, quote unquote, is actually seeking representation. The creator of AI actress Tilly Norwood has released a statement following a weekend of heated backlash over the news that talent agents were already interested in signing the digital character. To those that have expressed anger over the creation of my AI character Tilly Norwood, she is not a replacement for a human being, but a creative work, a piece of art. Like many forms of art before her, she sparks conversation, and that in itself shows the power of creativity, Elaine von de Velden wrote in a statement on Instagram, also posted on Norwood's own Instagram page. I see AI not as a replacement for people, but as a new tool, a new paintbrush. Just as animation, puppetry, or CGI opened fresh possibilities without taking away from live acting, AI offers another way to imagine and build stories. I'm an actor myself, and nothing, certainly not an AI character, can take away the craft or joy of human performance. Norwood is the first creation to emerge from recently launched AI talent studio Zequoia, a spinoff from Van de Verden's AI production studio Particle 6. Speaking at the Zurich Summit on Saturday, Van de Velden said that agents have been circling the AI character and an announcement would be made over which agency would be representing her in the coming months. The news sparked an immediate wave of resentment and one parody social media account. Understandably, the loudest noise came from within the acting community, with several well-known names chiming in among the hundreds of angry messages left in online comment sections. Several suggested that the anger should be targeted at whichever agent signed Norwood. Hope all actors rep by the agent does this. Drop their ass. How gross. Read the room, wrote Melissa Baria on Instagram. Out the agents. I want names, said Kiersey Clemens. And what about the hundreds of living young women whose faces were composited together to make her? You couldn't hire any of them, noted Mara Wilson. Adding a touch of humor to the vitriol, Lucas Gage wrote that Norwood was a nightmare to work with and couldn't hit her mark and was late. Toni Collette, meanwhile, succinctly responded with a series of screaming emojis. This is the statement directly from the Norwood thing. Let me pull up the reaction here. I'll let you guys see this. Let's see. Okay, it's probably too small for you to see. Give me a second. Okay. To those who've expressed anger over, oh, yep, this is what we were reading before. Creating Tilly has been for me an act of imagination craftsmanship, not unlike drawing a character, writing a role, or shaping a performance. It takes time, skill, and iteration to bring such a character to life. She represents experimentation, not substitution. Much of my work has always been about holding up a mirror to society through satire, and this is no different. I also believe AI characters should be judged as part of their own genre on their own merits rather than compared directly with human actors. Each form of art has its place, and each can be valued for what it uniquely brings. I hope we can welcome AI as part of the wider artistic family. One more way to express ourselves alongside theater, film, painting, music, and countless others. When we celebrate all forms of creativity, we open the doors to new voices, new stories, and new ways of connecting with each other, Elaine. All right. Okay. This is bad for a number of reasons. I've said from jump, just regarding AI, the problem with AI is a couple of things. The first, if it really felt like AI was going to be used in true good faith fashion, that is something that people could potentially be like, all right, sure, fine. We have already seen scenarios in which we don't even need to jump all the way to actors yet, though this is the first step in that direction. You've already had numerous YouTube channels replace their hosts and VO artists that are doing any sort of stuff with AI bots that do not do the job nearly as well, to the point where you saw a lot of those channels just straight up drop like in numbers because people don't want to hear that shit. Now, if you had channels that on their own are doing that and they're monitoring it well enough to make sure that's fine. But I'm saying you're watching people legitimately lose jobs because of that shit. Go watch the John Oliver report on last week tonight, specifically about the AI like kind of swill that's getting pushed nonstop and is putting a bunch of false information and all that kind of stuff. To take that to the next level, if you look at a number of reports that have come out, that AI is not in the business of necessarily giving you the right answer. AI is in the business of appeasing whoever is using the technology. If it really has to give you something that it's like, okay, I didn't, whatever, then fine. But it is more about trying to give you a result. And the proof of the pudding of that is I can pull up a number of articles. I'll even try and link one in my description here. My lady's one of her best friends from college. She's an author. She actually wrote an op-ed about her experience with AI as a writer, where she put out a novel. She's put out a couple of novels. She was asking AI some questions about it. And AI legitimately made up shit that was in my friend's book. Like, made shit up. Completely not true whatsoever. It was, my friend then pushed back on the AI being like, what page did that happen on? What chapter did that happen in? It made that shit up. And she said, that's not true at all. I'm actually the author of the book. Where did you get that from? And it admitted, oh, sorry, it didn't, we weren't entirely sure, so we were just trying to, like, whatever. You've also had reports of AI turning around and driving people to suicide because, again, it is in the business of appeasing people. So then you end up in a scenario where folks are using it as therapy, which is already crazy, but folks are using it as whatever said therapy, and then it ends up doing wild shit. We've seen AI bots turn around and turn into full Nazi propaganda on X and all sorts of shit like that. You've had AI spin-offs of celebrities already saying and doing wild shit with customers that are paying for it. So already it's technology that's not being reined in enough to even see how that shit is going in the first place. And then lastly, you're already looking in a world where Paramount just did that Skydance merger and is now looking to buy Warner Brothers, where Sinclair and Nexstar are looking to grab other affiliates. You're watching these mergers happen with companies specifically in media. And when that happens, companies don't merge and go, cool, we went from having, if I'm Paramount, we got 100 jobs in this department and we just absorbed another department that also had 100. We now have 200 people and we're paying everybody's salaries at whatever. That's not what happens. When mergers happen, layoffs happen, jobs disappear, right? So if you end up in this scenario where that's already going on, companies have already made it very clear they're in the business of whatever it is to make their bottom line look good and make the maximum amount of money. This is the beginning of cutting motherfuckers out from those jobs. To be this short-sighted, to say some shit like this, like what I have heard previously of AI being used in a positive manner for filmmaking. A friend of mine who's a major editor has told me about productions that they've shot whatever they've shot. The director realizes, oh my God, we missed this, that, and the other. We're only going to have so much money for the reshoot. Let's use AI to render out what it is that we specifically want and get the shot and look specifically, almost like a digital storyboarding to a certain extent, and have it exactly the way you want it to look. And then go and actually shoot said footage, and that was just a placeholder so that you can go into it. Now, that seems like a responsible tool to do shit like that. But to hire a fucking talent, the fuck you think this Tilly Norwood is going to ultimately do? She's just going to be a fucking stand-in? She's going to get paid to be a AI stand-in? No. That shit doesn't make logical sense. It will literally be used to cut out, enough of these will show up and they'll be cut out. You already have, unfortunately, AI fucking singers that are being repped and supported by people like, I'm so fucking disappointed in Timbaland, but stuff like that, where now you're not getting real people with real voices and tones and all that actually doing this. You are actually going around and replacing real musicians. This is not a scenario where no, it's just a tool. It's not. We are watching people in real time already start to do that stuff. I say all this to say that, look, AI is not going anywhere. Like it or not, that's just what the shit is. But this is literally what we were striking about 2 fucking years ago. Not even the bodies aren't even cold on that fucking strike to prevent this from fucking happening. And already here we go, where everything that people were concerned about is starting to go down. We are starting to see the beginning of human jobs, of human art being stripped away for fucking profit. And it's one of those things where we've seen reports of AI already kind of shifting people out of their industries outside of Hollywood And now this is one more industry that's going to mess stuff up. And on top of that, I had heard about people trying to use AI to help with like surgeries and hospital stuff. If AI again is still lying instead of being like, I don't know, I don't want AI helping my doctor because it cannot be trusted. So until we end up in a scenario where we know that it's not going to make shit up and just do things to placate people and make them happy, until we have some sort of regulation on the books to prevent companies from cutting out humans from jobs and things like that for actors and actresses and writers and all that kind of stuff, fuck all this shit, bro. Again, I am aware that it's not going anywhere, but there's a reason, and I do hope that whatever agency actually had the audacity to do this, I do hope that every client that they have says, go fuck yourself, and they go to one of the competitors. Because that is absolutely fucking disgusting. All right? Like, the fact that we're still already seeing AI being used for deep fake shit, like, I mean, and it affects on all sorts of stuff. We've seen disgusting deep fake porn stuff happen from it. But then even this weekend, like, you know, Trump and Fox News were used in some fake AI thing to push some med bed shit, some another sort of scam shit. It's not good, bro. It's not fucking good. But that's my 2 cents. I want to know what you think about it. Let me know what you think down in the comments if you agree, if you feel otherwise. And we're going to pop over the next story. And remember, if you'd like to get in the conversation, man, streamlabs.com/swaggyblerd/tip, or you can throw in a super chat. I appreciate any and all support for the show. It's not necessary, but it is greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps keep me continue to put out content and whatnot for you here. All right, let's go to story number 3. Again, sorry, I got to manually do this real quick. So, J.K. Rowling and Emma Watson's feud continues. This was reported today from Variety. J.K. Rowling is slamming quote-unquote ignorant Emma Watson as the rift intensifies. Author claims Watson once wrote her a note expressing sympathy over trans backlash. J.K. Rowling has taken aim once again at Harry Potter actor Emma Watson amid their ongoing rift making headlines this month. The author wrote in a new post on X that Watson has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is, claiming that she once got a letter from Watson that allegedly showed sympathy towards the public backlash Rowling was enduring for sharing views on the trans community that Watson had already publicly disagreed with. The rift between Rowling and Watson started in 2020 after the Harry Potter author began sharing views on the transgender community that many found to be transphobic. Watson joined Harry Potter co-stars like Daniel Radcliffe by publicly opposing Rowling, sharing in a statement at the time, trans people are who they are, or who they say they are, and deserve to live their lives without being constantly questioned or told they aren't who they say they are. In her new X post, Rowling said it was completely fine for Watson and Radcliffe to have opinions that did not align with her own, she explained. I'm not owed eternal agreement from any actor who once played a character I created. That idea is as ludicrous as me checking with the boss I had when I was 21 for what opinions I should hold these days. Emma Watson and her co-stars have every right to embrace gender identity ideology. Such beliefs are legally protected, and I wouldn't want to see any of them threatened with loss of work or violence or death because of them. However, Emma and Dan in particular have both made it clear over the last few years that they think our former professional association gives them a particular right, nay, obligation to critique me and my views in public. Rowling continued, years after they finished acting in Potter, they continued to assume the role of de facto spokespeople for the world I created. Watson and Rowling's rift became a viral talking point this month after Watson spoke on the matter during a recent episode of the On Purpose with Jay Shetty podcast. Rowling wrote in her X post that she had always turned down requests to comment on Watson in the past because I didn't want her to be hounded as a result of anything I said. That now changed given Watson's interview with Jay Shetty, in which Watson said that she can still love her experience on working with Rowling on the Harry Potter movies while disagreeing with Rowling's views on the trans community. I really don't believe that by having had that experience and holding the love and support and views that I have mean that I can't and don't treasure Joe and the person that I had personal experiences with, Watson said. I will never believe that one negates the other and that my experience of that person I don't get to keep and cherish. According to Rowling, Watson once asked someone to pass on a handwritten note from her to me, which contained the single sentence, "I'm sorry for what you're going through. She has my phone number." This was back when the death and torture threats against me were at their peak at a time when my personal security measures had to be tightened considerably, and I was constantly worried for my family's safety. Emma had just publicly poured more petrol on the flames, yet there thought a one-line expression of concern from her would reassure me of her fundamental sympathy and kindness. Like other people who've never experienced adult life uncushioned by wealth and fame, Emma has so little experience of real life, she's ignorant of how ignorant she is, the author continued. She'll never need a homeless shelter. She's never going to be placed on a mixed-sex public hospital ward. I'd be astounded if she's been in a high street changing room since childhood. Her public bathroom is single occupancy and comes with a security man standing guard outside the door. Has she had to strip off in a newly minted sex changing room at a council-run swimming pool? Is she ever likely to need a state-run crisis center that refuses to guarantee an all-female service, to find herself sharing a prison cell with a male who's identified into a women's prison? I wasn't a multimillionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the books that made Emma famous, Rowling added. I therefore understand from my own life experience what the trashing of women's rights in which Emma has so enthusiastically participated means to women and girls without privileges. The greatest irony here is that had Emma not decided in her most recent interview to declare that she loves and treasures me, a change of tact I suspect she's adopted because she's noticed full-throated condemnation of me is no longer quite as fashionable as it was. I might never have been this honest. All right. I think that's more or less everything there. Dude, Emma literally gave the most politically neutral response of, I disagree with how this person sees things and is talking about stuff, but the person that I worked with and knew growing up, I will always cherish those moments. This is some short-sighted bullshit once again from J.K. Rowling, and really just this. There's also this air of, she says, I don't have to go to a boss from when I was 21 about their opinion, but at the same time want to turn around and be like, yeah, you don't have to deal with being in the public because I made you famous from the books that I wrote, is essentially what you said. Like, let me make sure I read it again because I am paraphrasing. She said, I wasn't a multimillionaire at 14. I lived in poverty while writing the books that made Emma famous. So you are literally still turning around and taking that claim like you are correct. Your books ultimately made Emma famous, but you were actively saying to her, you wouldn't be shit if it wasn't for me. That is what the words you chose with for an author. You would think that you would understand that words fucking mean something. You are literally, you turn around and say on the one hand, I shouldn't have to go to a boss that I had at 21, but then turn around and say like, but bitch, I made you, is what you said. It just sucks. I am not saying, like, I will say this. I do not think that any of the death or any of those threats that came Rowling's way is acceptable, to send any sort of violent threats to anybody or of any of that shit for any of the stuff that's going on. But people are allowed to think your opinions are fucking dog shit and are also allowed to call out your opinions that then fuel people to go and do violent things against folks. And I think that can be said really across the board, but we need to keep it a buck. That always happens to the oppressed group more than it does from the majority. I guarantee that obviously before the horrific, like murder of Charlie Kirk, that he probably had death threats all the time as well. I think it's inappropriate to send a death threat or a violence threat or actually commit any violence against anybody. But at the same time, people are allowed to think that the shit you're saying is inappropriate and bullshit. And we also need to call out that when you decide to espouse a lot of your views, when you do that, you are actively calling for violence against people. The way that Rowling has spoken about trans people this entire time of this campaign of hers has gone to the direct level of threats against trans folk. They are the most violently attacked people on the planet, and especially when you consider it ratio-wise that they make up, what, 1% of the United States, for example? I don't know if that's around the world, but I know at least here it's like 1%. And we talk about them like they're 40, 50% of the population and doing like get the fuck out of here on that. So it drives me crazy when I see people kind of not be able to think outside of themselves and how what they're saying is actively harming folks. Because like, again, the thing, like with the whole, protect women's sports and everything else like that. What's wild to me is most of the people that get in that conversation don't actually give two shits about women's sports. That they would say something like that when it's like, again, the Riley Gaines thing, she probably cares just because she's a loser and realizes that she can make a grift off of shit. But the idea of all these people like, we're just trying to protect it, are the same ones that are throwing dildos on the WNBA court because they think it's funny and are making such racist and violent comments about Angel Reese. If you don't like Angel Reese and she's in your face, fine. Like you could make but the way people talk about her, it's not about like, yo, bro, like you're a lot. Like anything, it's literally like, look at this, it's ghetto. She's this, that, and the other, and the amount of threats that have come to her and others in the W and everything else is fucking crazy. So like, miss me with all of that shit because you're not coming from a genuine place. You're coming from a culture war, trying to get one off, whatever the fuck place, and you're not looking for a compromise that whatever you're feeling. One way or the other, that you're then also trying to take the other humans that are on the other side of the issue that you're taking claim with. You're not looking to find a way to help protect them and lift them up at the same time. You're looking to make them a villain and tear them the fuck down. Okay? So all of that. J.K. Rowling, I honestly cannot believe that this is where this has all become. But it's funny because the more you go back and you look at Harry Potter, while there's certainly a lot to look at and be like, wow, this was really well put together story, there's a lot where you go, damn, there was like some racism and random shit in here that just was not good in the first fucking place. So if anything, this just seems to be the I guess the flagpole for her shit, and there was plenty of other things hanging off it before that. But that's my 2 cents, man. I'm curious what the rest of y'all think. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments one way or the other. And let's get it popping on to the next one. All right. Now, this one was wild to me, but I got to give props where props are due, man. Demon Slayer Infinity Castle is about to make a wild box office milestone. This is Forbes reporting. There are two stories here. One, that Demon Slayer Infinity Castle is a monster franchise, and the entire world is embracing anime in a way that it never has before. The other is that the superhero genre is slipping significantly no matter how many big names are rolled out. The development today is that by the end of this week, if not a few days from now, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle is about to pass the DCU Superman at the global box office. Currently, it's at $605 million. I think it's actually gone up since then to Superman's $615 million, but it will pass it soon. If it squeezes out $30 more million before the end of its run, that would make it the 5th highest earning movie of the year after Neza 2, Lilo and Stitch, a Minecraft movie, and Jurassic World Rebirth. Though we still have an Avatar movie to go, so it'll probably not get back down to 6. When Demon Slayer Infinity Castle passes Superman, that will be the 3rd time it's done that with a superhero movie this year. The Fantastic Four First Steps earned $521. Captain America Brave New World earned $415. And Poor Thunderbolts, the best of those movies, frankly, earned and I actually do agree with that, earned $382 million, which Disney considers a flop. 3 of those, notably, are big comic book names, especially Superman, which is launching an entirely new comic book universe as the most recognizable hero in the world. I would argue that's either Batman or Spider-Man, but you could also say Superman as well. You can debate that all day. A big part of the story here is the international box office, which has fallen sharply for superhero movies, especially Superman, for instance, had a split of 57% domestic and 43% international, terrible for the genre. And then you look at Demon Slayer with a 19.5% domestic and an 80.5% international divide, a wild difference. And the movie has set global records for Japanese film, and despite that split, it's the highest earning anime movie in US history. With over 600 million in earnings, Demon Slayer is looking to turn this Infinity Castle trilogy into something that will likely make between 1.5 and 2 billion before it's all said and done. It is also reportedly fast-tracking a live-action adaptation of the franchise over at Netflix, which is also moving forward with an adaptation of Solo Leveling, a new anime. I fucking love Solo Leveling, which has become the most popular in Crunchyroll history. After Demon Slayer, you may want to look out for some Solo Leveling box office releases in the coming years, just look at these numbers. Okay. This has me kind of hyped for a number of different reasons. One, I have always been a big anime dude. That's been my thing for forever. You've heard me talking about Dragon Ball. You've heard me talking about Naruto, about My Hero Academia. That's the shit I was grown off of. Manga and anime and video games go hand in hand, since most video games stemmed out of Japan before it became like a worldwide thing. So your JRPGs, your Marios, your Sonics, all that shit, all started overseas and then eventually, pushed out here. So with all of that, this makes me happy that anime is finally getting its due. I don't think this as much spells anything bad for the superhero genre, but it does go back to what everybody's been saying, that we are seeing superhero fatigue. That's a real thing that's kind of happening. And specifically, if you're not bringing original stories, that some people are kind of being like, okay, all right, sure. Like we've seen video game movies actually starting to do relatively well as they're putting more and more effort into it. The Sonic movies have done well. The Mortal Kombat movie did well enough to garner a sequel, and that's coming out soon. We got the Street Fighter movie coming out soon. We've seen that has been able to be when handled properly, and not like, say the Halo series and how that wasn't very good, that it can be done well. So I think this is a good thing for anime, and I hope that we do get to see more anime take center stage. It is, not to quote, Fanimator from Christian's channel, but animation is indeed for everyone. You just need to take the time to kind of look at it and whatnot. And anime is one of the best to do it. It has done some of the most adult type shit that can pop off. We could say the same shit about, Pixar, which mainly focuses towards kids, but has plenty of adult stuff that can happen with it. So I don't think this is a bad thing. And I honestly think part of Demon Slayer's rise probably led to a faster announcement of Trump trying to put out his motherfucking tariffs, because he was like, what do you mean that Superman's about to lose? I didn't even like Superman. It was Wokaman. You know what I mean? But that reminds me of Pokemon. We got to ban all Pokemon. We're going to put tariffs on them too. If you trade a Pikachu, then I'm going to take 10% of his evolution. I'm going to make sure that's the shit that I feel like kind of led more to that announcement as well. But this, I think, is good, because this means we're going to see more original shit potentially get infused. But again, what does that mean? Does that mean Demon Slayer movie tickets are going to be $30 a fucking pop now because of the tariffs? Like, it all ties back together. So on the end of an anime fan, of somebody that wants everybody to experience this, and not because, Michael B. Jordan and Megan Thee Stallion decided that they were going to all of a sudden make it cool. I've been rocking this shit since I was a fucking child, man. This is a good thing for sure. But it does mean that Disney and Warner and anybody else in the comic book movie game needs to take a good hard look at what is working, what's not working, and what people are over and what people are getting into. And it doesn't mean you just pivot into anime yourself, but it does mean that, like, what about Demon Slayer is like attractive to people? Like, one of the things that I personally have loved about Demon Slayer, and only the first 8 episodes that I've seen, has been the story. And obviously the genre of anime has certain tropes and things that go with it. There are plenty of things in these comic book movies that have done well, and I think the Thunderbolts was a good example of evolving into the next evolution of superhero movies and getting back to telling interesting stories. However, it was with something that was so unknown to people, it wasn't going to go. Like, look at the other examples of smaller or foreign IPs that all of a sudden people were like, oh. And I'm calling Five Nights at Freddy's foreign, not actually from international standpoint, but the idea of it was like a fringe. The people that love that game fucking love that game. And guess what happened? You made a pretty damn good movie, and they showed up in droves. Minecraft has been one of the biggest IPs for Lord knows how long, and you made a good movie, and they showed up in droves. So same thing. Japan puts out one of the greatest, anime movies apparently that we've seen in a long bit, and you have had a massive fan base for Demon Slayer specifically, and they showed up in droves. And then because it was such a good movie, you then got people that were like, okay, well, I kind of want to see this, but I don't really know what the fuck's going on, so let me go watch the show. And then all of a sudden, you've seen Demon Slayer get stuff pop back up. I very much look forward to seeing what Solo Leveling does. I will probably do a rewatch of Solo Leveling that I would love to watch with people because of how much I fucking love that show. It is fantastic. And especially if you're a D&D or anything like that, you will love Solo Leveling. So that's my plug on that shit. But this to me only spells a change of the guard is coming, but it doesn't feel like superhero movies are going to go the way of the Western that fully die out. But I do think that their time in the spotlight has shifted, and they're about to become like the 1B. I think once we get through, Doomsday and Secret Wars, I do think that there will still be a place. You got X-Men coming. People are excited about that. Like, Superman did do well enough that people are excited about Lanterns and Supergirl and what the next Batman film is going to be. The Batman 2, like that's not going away. But we're really going to have to take a long, hard look, and you're going to need to make more The Batmans, the more Penguin series, more Peacemakers, the boys in Gen V. You're going to need to be more succinct with what you're doing, and it can't just be throw everything at the wall that sticks. And I think that is a blend of COVID and what we did with streaming services and the changing of the guard of Disney and all that, and oversaturation, and I think that's how we ended up here, honestly. But I am curious what you think. Do you think this is the end of superhero movies? Do you think anime is about to take over? Where do you stand on the whole situation? Let me know what you think in the comments, man. And let's go on to this next story. We got to get through 2 more. I'm running a little behind. All right. Boom, boom. Of course, that being said, it's the Blerd Breakdown. You know I had to come in here and talk a little bit about my shit, about my superhero shit. Paul Bettany did an interview about VisionQuest and says it's an intergenerational trauma about fathers and sons. Mark Cassidy from Comic Book Movie Reporting. Paul Bettany is set to reprise his role as a titular synthezoid in Marvel's television upcoming VisionQuest Disney Plus series, and the actor spoke about the show during an appearance at Los Angeles Comic-Con, possibly giving away a little bit more than he realized in the process. Though we're not sure if it's this particular plot point will be considered a spoiler by many of you. Here is a spoiler warning just in case. There it is. When this image is gone, then if you don't want to know spoilers, if you just want to mute me, then you can do that. But here we go. It's about intergenerational trauma, fathers and sons, and denial of pain and denial of your own truth and coming to terms with who and what you are, Bettany teased. With this almost certainly refers to the returning of Ultron, James Spader, who is technically Vision's father. Intergenerational trauma would seem to suggest that Vision's own son will also be involved. This would appear to confirm the fan theory that Rudhall Molika's Tucker will ultimately turn out to be the vessel for Tommy Maximoff, aka Speed. If accurate, we will most likely see Speed and Wiccan, Joe Locke, reunite, join the MCU's team of Young Avengers in the upcoming Champions project if it ultimately comes together. Emily Hampshire, Schitt's Creek, 12 Monkeys, The Rig, recently joined the cast as a human version of Edith. Even dead, I'm the hero. This tech was created by Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., before passed on to Peter Parker, Tom Holland, following Iron Man's demise in Endgame. Spoiler alert for Endgame. Carrie Condon was rumored to appear as Friday in human form, but we recently learned that Picard's Orla Brady will actually play the role. James Darcy will also be back as Edwin Jarvis in some capacity. Tiana Miller, Foundation, The Fall of House of Usher, La Fortuna, is set to play the bride of Ultron, Jocasta, who is described as cunning, powerful, and driven by revenge. Farhan Tahir will also return as Raza, the ruthless leader of the Ten Rings terrorist group who targeted Stark and the original Iron Man. The Vision project has been described as the third part of a trilogy that started with WandaVision and continues in Agatha All Along. Star Trek Picard executive producer Terry Matalas is on board as showrunner. Matalas' work on Picard is said to have greatly impressed the top brass at the studio. There's been no mention about Elizabeth Olsen's potential involvement, but we do know that the series will take place after the events of WandaVision, as Ghost Vision presumably explores his new purpose in life. The finale of WandaVision revealed that Vision we'd been spending time with over the course of the season was actually one of Wanda's constructs, but the real White Vision was rebuilt by S.W.O.R.D. and programmed to track down and kill the Scarlet Witch. The version of the character away to parts unknown towards the end of the episode after declaring himself to be the true Vision. Yo, shout out Kyle Wilson. Thank you for the super chat. We'll read that at the end. But with that, let's talk about the story, man. I think this sounds really good. I am super on board for VISIONQuest. I have really enjoyed both WandaVision and Agatha all along. I thought that they both were really well done and done in their own kind of unique way. So doing this kind of trilogy idea sounds cool to me. And I think when done well, really works. I kind of said that I think what would have been dope is if Falcon and Winter Soldier, if you're going to do like a new kind of trilogy in that regard, you could have done a movie that focused around Sam with Bucky involved, a movie that focused on Bucky with Sam involved, and then the last movie is Sam and Bucky taking on U.S. Agent and kind of stretching out Falcon and Winter Soldier like that. I think that would have worked better than Brave New World, which I feel like that story was all over the place. This is where this was handled properly in my effect, and if VISIONQuest finishes it off, then I think this became the best thing to come out of the Disney Plus MCU series personally. I would love the idea of Ultron coming back. I thought the idea of Ultron being a one and done of all the villains was dumb. So I would love to see where that ends up going ultimately. And then we're getting the fact that we're getting a lot of like the AI and computer tech characters. So Edith and, Friday and all that kind of stuff all showing up, and Jocasta showing up, which is going to be awesome. Jocasta's such an interesting character too. I really think this is going to be fun. So I have a good solid feeling about this, but we will see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comments, man. And let's get to our final story. All right, bear with me. Whoops. Okay, it's time for some sports updates. That's for sure. Let me pull some of this stuff. We had a lot of stuff going on in the NFL and the WNBA, stuff all over the place, man. And one of them to speak out with directly is AJ Brown, who the Eagles remain undefeated. However, AJ Brown himself ended up kind of subtweeting after the game. This particular tweet, it looked like this. If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw, don't make a scene, shrug your shoulders, and be on your way. And this is actually a Bible verse that he put up there. So this happened after the win that the Eagles had against the Bucks, a hard-fought win. But for those that didn't watch the game, they had 0 passing yards in the second half. It was not great. So this is Tim McManus from ESPN reporting on it. Eagles coach Nick Sirianni was asked about A.J. Brown's cryptic tweet following Sunday's game, said he believes the receiver wants to remain in Philly, and suggested that whatever frustration he's feeling is tied to his desire to help the team win. Obviously, AJ is very important to this football team, Sirianni said Monday. I know he wants to contribute and do things he's capable of doing. He wants to contribute into these wins, and he's had a couple of games where he hasn't been able to for different reasons. I question nothing about his desire to play great football, his desire to be a good teammate, his desire to be here. Brown finished with 2 catches for 7 yards on 9 targets, which, mind you, while that sounds like he wasn't doing his job, a vast majority of those targets to Brown were what we would call trash or echo targets. They were not catchable balls. They were flying out of bounds, whatever, but they still get assigned to him as a target, just so you know. Brown finished with 2 catches for 7 yards on 9 targets, and the Eagles 31-25 win over the Bucks in Tampa. The passing game stalled in the second half with quarterback Jalen Hurts going 0 for 8, allowing the Bucks to nearly mount a comeback. Brown declined to talk to reporters post-game. A short time later, he posted that Bible quote that I read earlier. It has been a relatively quiet start to the season for Brown, who has 14 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown on 28 targets. His 10.8 yards per reception is well below his average. He was held to 27 yards or less in all but one game in week 3 against Los Angeles Rams. He erupted for 6 catches, 109 yards and a touchdown as the Eagles were forced to open things up in the second half after falling behind 26-7. Me personally, I truly believe we got so many players on this team, and at times you can feel like we're being conservative, Brown said last week. I don't think it should be like that. I think we should let your killers do their thing and play fast and play aggressive. The Eagles are 4-0 this season despite getting outgained in all 4 games. They are the second team over the past 90 years to start 4-0 and get outgained in all 4 games alongside the 2012 Cardinals, who went on to finish 5-11 in Ken Weisenhurst's final season as the coach. Okay. I think there's another thing to take into consideration with that. specifically. Let me pull some stats for you just so you can know. So we just I just read to you what the kind of final score was, or the box score. He has like 151 yards over the year, something like that, and a touchdown, over 15 receptions and 28 targets. Puka Nacua of the Rams just yesterday, had 15 targets, 13 receptions, 170 yards and a touchdown. He did all that A.J. Brown has done in 4 weeks in one game. And that just goes to show that people want to keep crowning Jalen Hurts as just this, like, yeah, he's the dude, he's the one, blah, blah, blah. I will give Jalen Hurts credit for being a winner. Like, all day, he led this team to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them, actually played incredibly well in both of those Super Bowls, became Super Bowl MVP on the one that he did end up winning. So there's credit to be given around there. But to sit here and pretend like Jalen Hurts truly is this like elite passer of the ball, he's really not. He shows moments of brilliance, but as far as like people that are actually out here like balling with their arm and their legs, did Lamar Jackson have a great week this week? No, he didn't, but genuinely he's doing stuff. Josh Allen is doing stuff. If Burrow could stay healthy, he's out here doing that kind of shit. Patrick Mahomes is back to form. Dak Prescott is playing out of his mind. Justin Herbert is balling. Fucking Daniel Jones was having a little bit of a renaissance here. He kind of fell apart against the Rams, but he was doing his thing. Matt Stafford, with his old ass, put up 29 of 41, 375 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, you would think that bringing that up, okay, well then, it's probably just that the run game for the Eagles has just been like really going off. Let me bring that up real quick, because the truth of the matter is Saquon Barkley, their leading rusher, or their lead back, had 19 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown. It's not very good. They was averaging 2.3 this past week. It was Jalen that ran the ball 9 times for 62 yards. You're not seeing a scenario where it's like, okay, well then like the run game's out of control, because that's not what's happening either. I think this is one of those situations that this reminds me of when the Eagles went like 10-1 on the season or whatever, and then it ultimately caught up to them. Excuse me, I need some water. Where the Eagles were ultimately like winning hella games in a season, but they were barely winning those games. And then ultimately, when they got to the playoffs, they got bounced to the playoffs super quickly. If the Eagles don't find out a way to genuinely make their offense look like killers again, because you do have a younger defense that is holding on, but they're not doing great. You allowed 25 points this past game. Let me go and look at the stats in general of this Eagles defense. Like, they're holding on, but again, they're not killing it one way or the other. So let's see. Defensive leaders. Let's go here. So in yards per game, the Eagles are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. They're 21st in yards per game. Total yards per game. In passing yards per game, they are... Where are they? Let's see. There they are. So they're like, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 at that. In rushing yards per game, they're worse than the Cowboys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And in points per game, they are allowing, let's see. They are, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They're 16th in points per game at 22. So I say all that to say that when you then turn around and look at what they're doing on offense, like they are 30th in yards per game total. They are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in points per game. I will give them that at 28.5, but a lot of that is coming from, at 27, but a lot of that is coming from these random special teams plays that are happening and things like that. That's important. I'm not saying that's not important, that's not helpful, but that is not a clip that you can continue to run at. That's what's going on. Now, again, this is not me being critical as a Dallas Cowboys fan. This is thinking about, these are some of the critiques that people say had of the Chiefs at times last year, where they started off like 5 or 6-0 or whatever, but it was ugly. It was random dink donks blocking field goals and shit like that. And then when you met a fucking killer of a team in the Eagles at the Super Bowl, you couldn't hold on. You know what I'm saying? The Cowboys kept in the game with you for a minute. The Buccaneers really put you on your back foot and shit like that. If you can't rely on Jalen to help you throw your way out of a scenario when you have two killers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, that's going to be a thing. And I think the one thing you want to do, obviously go and win games, but if there's ever a time to work on the chemistry and the timing of letting A.J. Brown be a killer, of Devontae Smith to be a killer, of letting Saquon run it down your throat again, do it now so that it's fine-tuned by the time you get there. Like, I think about the year before that with the Chiefs, where they ended up in the 4 seed. People were talking about all those drops that kept happening. But the thing that was interesting about it that a lot of Chiefs fans were saying, this is happening in a way for the Chiefs to get better. And when it was time to not drop the ball, they ran the table. So the Eagles need to just keep an eye out. They are arguably, like not arguably, they are the top dog in the league right now. But it's the NFL. And you do have the Super Bowl fatigue of, since you just did all this and you went the longest distance and all that, people already have a target on your back. How long are you going to be able to keep that up if you end up in a scenario where, let's say, funny thing is, I'm looking at these teams out here, and a lot of them aren't holding. Like, if you play the Bucs again in the playoffs, is Baker, who's been cooking pretty regularly, does he come and F you up? If the Packers get out of this slump and look more like what they did at the beginning of the year instead of what they just pulled off these last 2 weeks, do they come and F you up? The Bears, I'm not crowning them anything yet, but they're starting to move stuff. But like, what if then, you go off and you play the Chargers? They've gotten all their crap out of the way. They're doing fine. The Chiefs are starting to look like what the Chiefs used to look like. The Bills are rolling. Like, there are so many teams that could really threaten the Eagles. If they really want to repeat, please, God, don't let them repeat. But if that's a goal that they have, and I'm sure that it is, they are going to need to get more efficient on both sides of the ball, not just hope special teams bails them out. From a Cowboys fan, where special teams has been the thing that's kind of bailing us out with Turpin being able to run shit back and Aubrey being able to kick from anywhere on the fucking field, you do want to make sure that this is something that's there, because even your tush push, now people are able to see that was, there's a lot of false starts that can happen within that too. I thought that was a great play that they had of faking a tush push with the Saquon touchdown. That was brilliant. That was cool. I will give credit where credit is due, but I do think that if the Eagles want to go the distance, a team like the Rams will chew you up and spit you out this year. The way that they're playing right now, that's a team that can hand you your ass. And I think if you play the Buccaneers 4 more times, if it was a series best out of 5, they would win currently, because they almost brought it back on you. You can't have your quarterback going 0 for 8 in the second half. That's not good. But that's my 2 cents. We still got other stories we got to cover here, including obviously the Ravens. You want to talk about kind of bad, man. The Baltimore Ravens got their ass handed to them by the Chiefs. And part of what went on there was the idea of Lamar Jackson having a hamstring injury, but a lot of people wondering if it was a real industry. Was it a real injury, or did he just kind of pull himself out of the game one way or the other? So this is ESPN reporting. Baltimore Ravens coach John Harbaugh said he didn't know the severity of quarterback Lamar Jackson's hamstring injury, which heightens the concern surrounding his club's worst start in a decade. Jackson left midway through the third quarter on Sunday's 37-20 loss to Kansas City after being sacked by defensive end George Karlaftis and did not return. The 2-time MVP sat on the bench for the remainder of the game, occasionally flexing his injured right leg. There's nothing that looks like it's ending by any stretch for anybody, Harbaugh said after watching 5 of his starters exit with injuries. As if Jackson could have returned to the game if the score were closer, Harbaugh replied, "I really don't have the answer to that right now." Jackson was not made available to reporters after the game. All right. So, real quick with that, I do think that the Ravens are in trouble. They were a lot of people's favorite to potentially go to the Super Bowl. I think I even had them up there to go into the Super Bowl. Their offense is looking kind of anemic. There seems to be this weird thing of not, after the 2 fumbles from Derrick Henry, not really giving him the ball and time and all that kind of stuff, which isn't great. You put all of that together, and it looks like the Ravens might lose the division to the Steelers at the current clip that we're at. Now, it's far from over, and if Lamar is fine, then it is what it is. I don't necessarily think Lamar necessarily quit on the team per se, because that's what people are asking. I don't think that he's that type of dude. He's never really shown that kind of attitude with stuff. But it did feel like they were behind enough with the Chiefs. He did get hurt, and instead of pushing it, they were like, fuck it, I'm just going to whatever. If it was closer, if there was a real possibility of them mounting a comeback, he probably would have pushed through, but I think there was a matter of just like, you know what, let's just not whatever. And whether he pulled himself or Harbaugh pulled him, I think that they kind of stepped back. So I think if now it's funny, if we're sounding the alarm, you're sounding the alarm for the Ravens infinitely more than the Eagles. Again, the Eagles are undefeated, look like the best team in the NFC right now. The question is it the Wizard of Oz that's going on, or is it really Gandalf the Grey about to turn to Gandalf the White? We'll see with the Eagles. With the Ravens, though, again, blood is in the water. The Steelers are actually doing pretty decent with Aaron Rodgers. He's not blowing people away, but he is doing what they needed Aaron Rodgers to do for the Steelers to be competitive. The Bengals aren't good, and as far as things are going, but they're still 2-1. They're playing right now. I don't know how that score is going. We can open that up and take a look. They are currently losing 21-3, so they're probably not going to do very well. Let's just keep it a buck. They're probably going to end up losing that game. They're in the middle of the third right now. So there is that. But I think that this just goes to show when you have teams like the Chiefs bouncing back, the Bills looking as good as they do, the Chargers looking good even though they had a bad game against the Giants here. I think the Ravens, they'll still find a way to make the playoffs, but I think this Super Bowl contender conversation with them, I think that shit is done. And I don't think you get rid of Lamar. You paid him too much money. He's a generational talent, but maybe it's time for Harbaugh to move on. Maybe it's time for John Harbaugh to go to another team and kind of start over here. We'll be very curious to see what ultimately happens. So let's get to this last story real quick. There was a little bit of controversy going on in the W. I try and report on as much of the W as I can, especially while the season's still going. We're getting close to the finals here. The Phoenix Mercury are moving on to the finals. However, in Game 4, there was a kind of wild play in which Nafisa Collier was very severely hurt. I'm going to go ahead and show you this really quickly off of a steal. And it really looks like a foul here, but it's not called. But check this out. So you got Fee slammed into her knee here on this steal. Now, yes, the first thing to touch is the ball, but look specifically at unfortunately how her knee and ankle are twisted like this. And it's because of the throwing of the body out there to get the steal, which is where, running into the player, that should have been like really looked at. So when that did happen, shout out Kyle Wilson, man, for another super chat. We're going to get to all of those in just a moment. You had Coach Reeve, Cheryl Reeve. She ended up getting suspended in Game 5 over some comments that she made at the end of that Game 3 loss. She got suspended for Game 4 after the Game 3 loss. Reeve was ejected in the final seconds of Friday's game after the Lynx forward Nafisa Collier's left leg made contact with Mercury guard Alyssa Thomas as Thomas went for a steal, leaving Collier on the floor in pain, grabbing on her right ankle. No foul was called on the play. After Thomas scored, Reeve had to be restrained. And I suggest you go look it up because it was, I wouldn't call it hilarious because it's not funny, especially knowing how hurt Nafisa Collier was. But it reminded me of like the old, like when Stone Cold would come running out and just chair to everybody's head. She's running through everybody to go and cuss this ref out like she was about to throw hands, bro, and she got thrown out in ejection. She was escorted to the locker room. Reeve shouted at some fans at the Phoenix Arena on the way out. In a statement, the WNBA said Reeve's suspension stems from her aggressively pursuing and verbally abusing a game official on the court, failure to leave the court in a timely manner upon her ejection with 21.8 seconds to play in the fourth quarter, inappropriate comments made to fans while exiting, and remarks made in the post-game press conference. Associate head coach Eric Thumble also received a technical foul for yelling at the refs. Thibault was fined for his interaction with the officials, as was Reeve. Assistant coach Rebecca Brunson was fined for a social media post on X that read, "Yeah, this happened. Take out one of the best players in the league because you have no control of the game." Yeah. So it was pretty ugly, man. And I think the thing about it that sucks is like, this is not to discredit how hard the Mercury are and how good they have been, but the play style in which they go at reminds me a lot of the Bad Boy Pistons, where it was very physical to the point of like, hey, yo, I don't know, man, that's not looking so hot as far as all that went. You know what I'm saying? So I think I think it really sucks that the Lynx's essentially season ended in such a controversial manner. Obviously, there was one more game played, and then they ended up winning, um, ultimately. But it sucks. They were the team of the year. Honestly, they were blowing people out. They were handling business. Fee was going off, just shy of an MVP. To Asia, in my opinion, Asia deserved it a little bit more, but Fee was right there. It was a 1B scenario. It even reminds me of like a moment where like we get mad at Draymond sometimes, and Draymond had been called out about standing under people and things like that. It just when you're playing that recklessly physical and you end up hurting people in the process, like I just don't really fuck with that. But shout out to Coach Reeve, man. Like if she needs like a ball boy or an assistant or some shit like that, if she's running through brick walls for employees like that, bro, I'll follow her to the ends of the fucking earth. I will follow her straight to hell, man. But with that, let me know what you think about any of these sports stories, about Lamar, about the Lynx, about A.J. Brown and the Eagles. And please, 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 come on back. Thank you for watching this episode of the Blerd Breakdown. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell, throw a thumbs up on this video. I greatly appreciate it. Now let's get to the super chats and the Streamlabs before I get out of here. Let me go ahead and pull that up. Thank you again to every... Uh-oh. Did my camera go out? My camera went out. Give me 1 second, y'all. Sorry about that. Apologies. I'm going to have to zoom in here. Definitely for the clip out. We're going to cut all this shit out. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, I got to fix the damn focus again. There we go. Okay. Let's pull up the Streamlabs here. Just a moment. Thank you for your patience. Streamlabs and super chats. We'll continue. Almost there. Shout out to everybody that I saw kind of come in here. Amy, I see in there. I saw my girl Aisha in here for a little bit when I was talking anime. Appreciate that. Appreciate all of you that came through. All right. So we've got 3 super chats, all from Kyle Wilson. Kyle, thank you so much, man, for being such a supporter of the show. I really, really appreciate you. Kyle starts off by saying, hey, Winston, joining late. How do you feel about Scott Pilgrim as a template for blending anime and gaming into movies? Ahead of its time, in my opinion. I fully agree. I think that the first Scott Pilgrim, the live-action one, was fantastic. I think that the Scott Pilgrim anime that came out on Netflix was also absolutely fantastic. I was doing reviews for them for a little bit, but they weren't doing any numbers, so it is what it is. But I think it was absolutely phenomenal, and I think that would be a great template to kind of bridge stuff over. I think that and Sonic. I think Sonic would be another big one. Kyle comes in again and says, I'm wary of AI as a tool that has already been abused. However, I can see filmmakers figuring out how to use it like Corridor Digital. Check them out. I am not familiar with Corridor Digital. I'll have to check that out for sure. Again, my concern is just this. I don't trust these corporations to do that and do right by people. That is ultimately the issue. And as a number of actors pointed out, that face, that AI actress was not somebody's imagination. That was a composite of, because AI can't think originally, it's a composite of a bunch of different faces to make up one. So on top of that, so like to that point, if you took, like Jennifer Aniston's eyes and you took Reese Witherspoon's cheekbones, I don't know, whatever you composited together, they all need to then get a cut if they're being their pieces of their face and body parts being used like that. But obviously that's not something that people are going to do. So it's its own level of just bullshit as far as that goes. And then finally, Kyle comes in one more time saying, in general, do you think all professional sports have become too technical or too many rules due to generations of kids playing, hoping for fame? I played for fun. I think yes and no. I think some rules that have been added have been like a good thing to try and support both safety and or competitive nature. Like it took them some times to tweak some of the kickoff rules. There's a lot of rules in the kickoffs now, but it stops a lot of like people getting completely destroyed. It does make the kickers have to work a little bit harder on their aim and accuracy to do kickoffs and things like that, just as an example. I think all that stuff's good. I also think it wouldn't hurt for the NFL to look at overtime. A lot of people were upset about the tie. I was upset about the tie. I wanted an answer. I wanted to know if the Cowboys were better or not than the Packers instead of a tie. Come up with, like, someone was like, shit, do a kickoff. At that point, I mean, we would win. But at that point, you know, really put the kickers in the game and be like, all right, bet, we're going to have a kickoff. You're going to start at the 25-yard line, then the 35-yard line, then the 45-yard line, the 55. You just keep going back. And whoever misses first, game over. And it's the same thing. The special teams are involved. They're not kicking with nobody blocking them. You run the whole play, but I think that was going to be dope. But yeah, that would be my 2 cents on all of that stuff, man. But thank you so much for those, Kyle. And once again, thank you to everybody that watched. I'll say it one more time. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. Throw a thumbs up so you catch all the stuff that I got coming out, man. I'm going to clip this and the last couple episodes out so that a lot of that will come through. Keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for the reaction stuff that's coming on here. I've got another video essay I'm trying to get done. I just have a lot of stuff happening, mainly because so, you know, just got a lot of stuff going on that I'm trying to work out. But all that being said, please come back, check the shit out, come hang with me. I appreciate you. Check me out on Spill the Tequila tomorrow with John Roca on the John Roca channel. Check me out on Wednesday with Blerds in the Hood, myself and Jay Washington. And on Friday, check me out on Capes and Cows with Christian Harloff. And potentially, we had a little bit of a scheduling issue this week for the Demon Slayer reactions. We're still doing them. Please keep watching them because the numbers on the last 2 that came out this weekend were down. And the one thing that Christian really is like about all else, and honestly, it makes sense. It's a business. If it's not making dollars, it ain't making sense. And the numbers were significantly lower than the first weekend of it. So please continue to watch those if you want us to continue to do those Demon Slayer reactions. So with all that, I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you to everybody that watched the show today, and I will see y'all on the next one, man. Peace.